When we talk about improving education, you hear a million different ideas, right? Smaller classes, more iPads, you name it. But what if we want to know what actually works? If we're going to invest our time and money, where do we get the biggest bang for our buck? Well, let's follow the evidence and see what truly moves the needle for students.
You know, at the heart of this whole debate, there are really two big competing ideas. First, there's the one that puts the student in the driver's seat, letting them discover things on their own. And then there's the idea of the teacher as the expert guide leading the way. So which is it? What really makes a difference in the classroom? Let's see what the data has to say. All right, first up, let's talk about the idea of student-directed learning. It's a really popular concept, and honestly, it sounds great on the surface. The thinking is if you give students control, you empower them, right? They become more curious, more engaged, more responsible. And it's an idea that has some really appealing promises attached to it.
And you can see why it's so alluring. I mean, look at this. A huge meta-analysis found that kids with strong self-directed learning skills also tend to have higher life satisfaction, more curiosity, and more creativity. It's even linked to having higher goals for the future and, yes, better academic performance. Now, based on this, you'd think it's a total slam dunk. But here's the catch. Correlation is not causation. To figure out what causes learning, we need a much more precise tool. And this is where we have to shift gears, moving from what sounds good in theory to what holds up under a microscope. To really compare different teaching strategies, we need a standardized yardstick, a scientific barometer, if you will, of what actually works.
And that barometer is something called effect size, and it comes from the incredible work of researcher John Hattie. Just think of it as a universal measuring stick. Now, the magic number here is 0.40. An effect size of 0.40 represents 1 full year of progress for a student with an average teacher. So anything above that is actually accelerating learning, and anything below it, well, it's having less of an impact than just a normal year at school. Okay, so now we have our measuring stick. Let's go back to that popular idea of student-led learning. We saw all those positive connections, but what is the actual measurable impact on student achievement when you let the student have complete control? 0.04, that's it. I mean, that number is so close to zero, it's honestly shocking. What this means is that when students are left completely to their own devices, the effect on their academic learning is next to nothing. The popular promise just doesn't hold up in reality. And just look at this comparison to really let it sink in. That tiny little bar for purely student-led learning is completely dwarfed by the effect of just an average teacher. We're talking about an impact that is literally 10 times smaller. Think about that. Pouring resources into a strategy with almost no effect is a huge missed opportunity.
So if letting students run the show isn't the answer, then what is? Well, the evidence points overwhelmingly in one clear direction: investing in our teachers. More specifically, investing in high-quality professional development that helps them become even better experts.
So what happens when we do that? The average effect size for teacher coaching programs is 0.28. Now, while that's not 0.40, remember this is the added impact on top of what they're already doing. It's a serious boost. By systematically helping teachers improve through things like peer observation, planning together, and getting expert coaching, we see a real, tangible impact on student achievement. And this growth, it's not some kind of magic. Research shows it's like a powerful ripple effect. It all starts with the teacher, a change in their own knowledge and what they believe is possible. That leads them to try new things in their classroom. And from there, you start to see a direct impact on students. And eventually, that positive change can spread through the whole school. This brings us right back to our big question from the beginning. All of this evidence points to a really clear difference in the role a teacher should play. And Hattie has the perfect names for it: the facilitator versus the activator. Okay, so on one side, you've got the facilitator. This is that hands-off, minimally guided approach we've been talking about. Think open classrooms and pure discovery learning. We've already seen that this has a very, very low impact. But then you have the activator. The activator is the expert guide. They're deeply involved using clear goals, direct instruction, and tons of feedback to lead the learning. And this is where you see the huge gains.
And the numbers, they make this crystal clear. Just look at these activator strategies. Formative evaluation has a massive 0.90 effect size. That's more than double a typical year of learning. Reciprocal teaching, 0.74. Feedback, 0.72. Now compare that to the facilitator strategies at the bottom, barely even registering. The big takeaway here is that even if your end goal is for students to become self-directed, they can't get there on their own. They need an active, expert teacher to show them the way.
So we know this activator model is the key. But what's the secret ingredient? Inside this powerful approach, what's the single element that drives these incredible results?
Now, this might surprise you. Howdy's research found that the most powerful kind of feedback isn't actually from the teacher to the student. It's the other way around. It's from the student back to the teacher. Think about it. When a teacher can actually see the learning through their students' eyes, when they know what's clicking, what's confusing, and where the misconceptions are, that's when they can step in, adapt, and truly activate learning. It completely changes the game. So, at the end of the day, the evidence is really clear. The biggest improvements in student learning don't come from a hands-off approach. They come from investing in, developing, and supporting expert teachers who are active and responsive in the classroom. Which brings us back to our original question. If we want the best results, the data tells us to focus on the person at the front of the room. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are our priorities in education aligned with what we know actually works?